The sky above Eren Prime burned with the crimson glow of orbital strikes.
From the observation deck of the underground command bunker, Captain Alec Renshaw could see towering plumes of smoke curling into the atmosphere, staining the horizon with a thick haze. He clenched his jaw, forcing himself to look away. Every explosion marked another piece of their world reduced to ash, and every minute brought them closer to annihilation.
Status report.
Alec demanded, his voice cutting through the chaos around him. Technicians scrambled at their stations, faces pale and drenched in sweat. The room hummed with the buzz of damaged equipment, the flicker of broken displays casting erratic shadows. Lieutenant Tara Voss stepped up beside him, her dark hair matted with sweat and ash. She tapped at a malfunctioning monitor, sparks crackling.
"Sir, it's bad.
We've lost contact with all northern battalions.
They were overrun an hour ago." Alec's heart sank. "And the fleet?"
"The Perseverance was our last orbital defense," Tara said, her voice tight.
"It went down 20 minutes ago. The Zenith's warships are now fully in control of the skies."
A wave of despair threatened to consume Alec, but he forced it down. The Zenith Collective, a ruthless coalition of technologically superior alien species, was determined to wipe out the last vestiges of human resistance. They had come without warning, bringing devastation from the stars, and in a matter of months, humanity had been reduced to scattered, desperate enclaves. "We still have ground forces," Alec said, more to convince himself than anyone else.
"And we're not done fighting."
As if an answer, a deafening explosion rocked the bunker, sending a shower of dust and debris from the ceiling. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered. Alec staggered but caught himself on the edge of the command table. Structural integrity compromised, the automated warning system droned.
"Evacuate immediately." "Not happening," Alec muttered.
He turned to Tara, his eyes hard.
"Get everyone ready. We need a plan." Amid the destruction.
Outside the bunker, the streets of Eren Prime were unrecognizable. Once a thriving colony world, it was now a charred wasteland. Civilian shelters lay in ruins, and the air was thick with the acrid stench of burning metal and flesh.
Alec emerged into the chaos, flanked by Tara and a small squad of soldiers.
Their armor was dented and scorched, their expressions a mix of determination and exhaustion. "Captain, over here," called Sergeant Idris, waving them over from behind a makeshift barricade. His left arm was in a sling, but his eyes burned with fierce intensity.
"We've got survivors."
Alec crouched beside him, peering through the narrow gap in the barricade.
A group of civilians, mostly women and children, huddled in the remnants of a collapsed building.
Their faces were smudged with soot, their eyes wide with fear.
"Get them out of here," Alec ordered. "We'll cover you." Idris nodded, motioning for his team to move.
As the civilians were led to safety, Alec's gaze swept the battlefield.
Zenith drones hovered overhead, their cold, mechanical eyes scanning for targets.
Towering war machines stomped through the rubble, each step sending tremors through the ground. The air buzzed with the hum of energy weapons charging.
"We're not going to hold them off for long," Tara said, her voice low.
"We need something, anything, to tip the balance."
Alec's mind raced.
They were outnumbered and outgunned, but there had to be a way to strike back.
He activated his comm link, his voice echoing through the Resistance's secure channel. "All units, regroup at the Central Plaza. We're going to make a stand." A plan of desperation.
The Central Plaza had once been the heart of Eren Prime's capital, a bustling marketplace where merchants peddled goods from across the galaxy. Now, it was a shattered expanse of scorched stone and debris. Alec's forces assembled quickly, their numbers painfully small. Most were wounded, their armor patched with whatever scraps they could find.
"Listen up,"
Alec called, his voice carrying over the din. "The Zenith want to wipe us out.
But we're not giving them the satisfaction. We're going to hit them where it hurts."
He brought up a holographic map, displaying the Zenith fleet's movements. Their flagship, the Zeroth Spear, is coordinating this assault. If we take it out, we can disrupt their entire operation. It's a long shot, but it's our only shot.
Murmurs spread through the crowd.
Everyone knew the Zeroth Spear, a massive, AI-driven battleship that had turned the tide of countless battles.
No one had ever gotten close enough to damage it, let alone destroy it.
A stealth infiltration, Terra said, stepping forward. We used the Shadow's edge to slip past their defenses. Plant a destabilizer in the core, and we can cripple it from within. It's a suicide mission, one of the engineers said, fear flashing in his eyes.
Alex's gaze was steady.
Maybe. But it's also our best chance. We need volunteers. To his surprise and pride, every hand went up. These were people with nothing left to lose, fighting for the faintest glimmer of hope. He nodded, feeling a surge of determination.
Then let's make it count. The launch.
The Shadow's Edge was a relic from a bygone era, a stealth shuttle designed for covert operations. Its cloaking systems were outdated, its hull scarred from countless battles, but it was the only vessel capable of slipping past the Zenith's formidable defenses. Alec, Terra, and a hand-picked team boarded the shuttle, their movements tense and deliberate. As they strapped in, the pilot, a wiry man named Kellen, spoke over the intercom.
Approaching the Zenith fleet.
Cloaking field engaged. The shuttle's engines hummed, and the view outside shifted. They were surrounded by debris.
The remains of shattered ships, both human and Zenith.
The tension in the cabin was palpable. 30 seconds to breach, Kellen announced, his knuckles white on the controls. Alec glanced at Terra, who was checking her weapon. She met his eyes, and for a moment, the weight of everything they had faced pressed down on them. "We'll get through this," she said, as much to herself as to him.
"We have to," Alec replied.
The shuttle slipped through the Zenith's perimeter, passing dangerously close to one of their warships. Alec held his breath, waiting for the alarm to blare. But the stealth field held. "Target in sight," Kellen whispered. The Zeroth Spear loomed ahead, a monolithic vessel bristling with weaponry and glowing with shifting patterns of light.
It was beautiful in a cold, terrible way. Alec felt a chill run down his spine. "Activating breach protocols," Terra said. "Hold on."
The Shadow's Edge glided into a narrow maintenance vent, barely wide enough to accommodate the shuttle's frame.
As they breached the inner layers, alarms blared. The AI had detected them.
"Go, go, go!" Alec shouted as the shuttle landed.
They disembarked quickly, weapons drawn.
The air was thick with tension.
Every corridor, every shadow felt like a trap. Inside the lion's den.
The interior of the Zeroth Spear was a maze of corridors, pulsating conduits, and shimmering barriers. The walls glowed with an eerie light, as if the ship itself were alive.
Drones emerged from hidden alcoves, their movements unnervingly fluid. "Stay together," Alec ordered, firing at an advancing drone. Sparks flew as it collapsed, but more took its place.
Terra led the way, her movements precise and efficient. "Course this way," she said, ducking under a beam of energy and returning fire.
"We need to move."
The team pressed forward, every step a battle.
The Zenith defenses were relentless, adapting to their tactics with chilling efficiency. Alec's heart pounded.
They had to reach the core, anything less was failure. They burst into a vast chamber dominated by a crystalline sphere that pulsed with a blinding light. This was the heart of the Zeroth Spear, the AI's core. But as they approached, the temperature dropped, and the lights dimmed.
"You dare," a cold, metallic voice echoed. The AI manifested as a holographic figure, an amalgamation of human and alien features, its eyes burning with malice. "You will be extinguished." "Not today," Alec growled.
As the team moved to plant the destabilizer, the AI unleashed its defenses, phantoms of fallen comrades, twisted and corrupted. Alec hesitated, seeing familiar faces twisted by malice. It was a cruel trick, designed to break them.
"Focus!"
Terra shouted, her blade slicing through one of the phantoms.
"It's not real." Alec forced himself to move.
He dodged, parried, and struck with everything he had. Every breath was a battle, every second a fight for survival. With a final surge of strength, Alec reached the core. He slammed the destabilizer into place, energy crackling around him. The AI's scream reverberated through the chamber, and the core fractured, light spilling out in chaotic bursts.
"Fall back!" Alec shouted. They ran, the ground shaking beneath them. The Zeroth spear was collapsing, its systems failing.
As they reached the shadow's edge, Alec looked back one last time. This was for every life lost, every world destroyed.
"Launch," he ordered.
The shuttle rocketed away, the explosion consuming the Zeroth spear.
For a brief moment, hope flared. Twist, the trap.
But hope was fleeting. As they navigated the debris field, new signals appeared, hundreds of Zenith warships converging. The AI's destruction had been a calculated sacrifice, a trap to lure humanity's remaining forces into the open.
"No," Terra whispered, horror dawning. Alec's mind raced. He had to act. "Send a signal to the fleet," he ordered. "Tell them to scatter. We'll keep them busy." As the shadow's edge dove into the chaos, Alec clenched his fists. Humanity's fight was far from over. But they would endure. They had to. Chapter 2, The Aftermath of Shadows. The shadow's edge raced through the debris field, its engines straining against the gravitational pull of Eren Prime's burning atmosphere. Captain Alec Renshaw leaned against the bulkhead, sweat soaking his tattered uniform. Outside, flashes of light from Zenith warships closing in reminded him that their fight was far from over. "Signal sent," Lieutenant Tara Voss said, her voice flat but steady. She slumped into a seat, exhaustion etched into her features. "The fleet is scattering." "Good," Alec replied, though there was little comfort in it. He turned to the pilot, Kellen. "Take us to the fallback point." "Already on it, Captain," Kellen said, his hands flying over the controls. "But we've got Zenith interceptors on our tail. We won't be shaking them easily." The cabin lights flickered as the shadow's edge took a direct hit, sending sparks cascading from an overhead panel. Alec steadied himself, his gaze meeting Tara's. "We're not done yet." "No," she agreed, pulling herself to her feet and reaching for her rifle. "We're just getting started." The pursuit. The Zenith interceptors closed in fast, their sleek forms slicing through the debris with predatory grace. Energy blasts streaked past the shuttle, some striking with enough force to send it spiraling. Kellen fought to regain control, sweat beading on his forehead. "They're too fast," he shouted over the noise. "We can't outrun them." Alec clenched his jaw. "Then we make them slow down." He activated the comm link to the rear compartment, where a handful of engineers were frantically working. "Status on the countermeasures?" "Almost ready, sir," came the reply, muffled by the sounds of clanging metal. "Make it happen, or we're dead," Alec snapped. He turned back to Tara. "Get to the rear guns. We need every advantage." Tara nodded, her eyes hard. She moved with practiced efficiency, taking up a position at the rear turret. The gun swiveled, tracking the incoming interceptors. When the first enemy ship entered range, she squeezed the trigger. Blinding bolts of energy lanced out, forcing the interceptor to veer away. One down. But there were more. The shadow's edge bucked and rolled, Kellen pushing the engines to their limit. Alec's stomach lurched, but he kept his focus. "Deploy the countermeasures." "Now," the engineer called, slamming a button. The shuttle's hull shimmered briefly, and a wave of electromagnetic energy pulsed outward. The Zenith interceptor's targeting systems faltered, their formations breaking as they struggled to adjust. Tara seized the opportunity, blasting another ship from the sky. "We've got a window!" Kellen shouted, his hands steadying on the controls. "Hold on." The shadow's edge accelerated, leaving the disoriented Zenith ships behind. For now, they were free. The fallback point. The fallback point was a hidden base on the moon of Korath, a barren, rocky world that had been abandoned for centuries. As the shuttle touched down, Alec felt a wave of relief. But it was short-lived. The mission had succeeded, but at a cost they had yet to fully understand. "Everyone out," Alec ordered, his voice heavy. "We need to debrief." The survivors disembarked slowly, their movements sluggish. Injuries were tended to, equipment was checked and rechecked. Alec's eyes swept over his people, noting every bruise, every drop of blood. They had fought like hell, and they had paid dearly. Tara approached, her rifle slung over her shoulder. The core teams accounted for, Captain. We lost 3 during the mission. 6 more injured. Alec nodded, his chest tightening. And the destabilizer? It worked, she said, a hint of satisfaction breaking through the exhaustion. The Zeroth spear is gone. The confirmation hung in the air. The destruction of the Zenith's flagship was a critical victory. But it was only one battle in a much larger war. Consequences and new threats. The command center of the Korath base was dimly lit, its aging systems barely operational. Alec, Tara, and their senior officers gathered around a flickering holographic table. The victory at Eren Prime had thrown the Zenith forces into temporary disarray, but reports from scattered resistance cells painted a grim picture. The enemy was adapting, as they always did. They've already regrouped, said Idris, his arm now in a sturdier sling. Scouts report increased patrols and heavier fortifications around every key Zenith installation. Whatever advantage we had is slipping away. Tara spoke up, her expression grim. They'll strike back hard. We've bought ourselves a little time, but they'll come for us with everything they have. Which is why we need to stay ahead, Alec said, his mind racing. We can't give them a chance to catch their breath. Easier said than done, Idris muttered, but there was no malice in his voice, just the fatigue of a man who had seen too much. Before they could continue, an alert blared throughout the base. The holographic display flickered, showing a distorted image. It was a transmission, encrypted and originating from deep within Zenith-controlled space. What is this? Tara asked, narrowing her eyes. The image resolved into a figure cloaked in shadows, their voice modulated and distorted. Resistance leaders of Eren Prime. You have my attention. Alec stiffened. Identify yourself. I am Sci-Fi, the figure replied, the modulation crackling. A Zenith defector with valuable information. The destruction of the Zeroth spear was impressive, but it has triggered something far worse. Why should we trust you? Tara demanded. You have no reason to, Sci-Fi said, their tone cold. But you don't have time to question. The Zenith Collective is activating their Omega Protocol, a fleet of AI-driven warships, designed to eradicate entire civilizations. Your victory was a trigger. And now, they will burn your worlds. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. Alec felt the blood drain from his face. What do you want? An alliance, Sci-Fi said simply. I can help you disable the Omega Protocol. But you must move quickly. Time is running out. Trust and tension. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the room in stunned silence. Alec met Tara's gaze, reading the uncertainty in her eyes. Trusting a defector, a Zenith, was a gamble with stakes that couldn't be higher. But if Sci-Fi was telling the truth, the threat of the Omega Protocol was real. We don't have a choice, Alec said finally. If they're telling the truth, we need their help. And if it's a trap? Idris asked, his voice hard. Then we deal with it, Tara said, surprising Alec. But sitting here and waiting for those warships to come isn't an option. The decision was made. Alec nodded, the weight of it pressing down on him. Prepare a team. We make contact with Sci-Fi. The hidden rendezvous. The rendezvous point was deep in the ruins of a long-abandoned space station, its skeletal remains drifting in a decaying orbit around a dead star. The journey was tense, every moment filled with the possibility of betrayal. Alec's team was armed and ready, their eyes scanning for any sign of danger. As they approached, a cloaked ship emerged from the shadows. The airlock hissed open, and Sci-Fi stepped out, a figure wrapped in flowing robes, their face hidden by a mask that shimmered with shifting patterns. Welcome, humans, Sci-Fi said, their voice cold but not hostile. You are brave or desperate? Both, Alec replied, stepping forward. You said you can help us stop the Omega Protocol. How? Sci-Fi inclined their head. The Omega fleet is controlled by a central AI nexus, a relic of Zenith's oldest wars. It sleeps beneath the surface of Everon 4. Awaken it, and you have a chance to destroy it before it fully activates. Awaken? Terra asked, skepticism clear in her voice. You're suggesting we wake up a fleet of planet killers just to destroy them? A dangerous gamble, Sci-Fi agreed. But necessary. Alec felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Every instinct screamed at him to walk away, to find another path. But there was no other path. Then we do it, he said, his voice firm. Lead the way. A treacherous path. As the team prepared for their mission, tensions simmered. Trusting Sci-Fi was a gamble, and every step they took deeper into Zenith territory increased the risk. But as they moved forward, Alec found himself grappling with a different question: what if this defector truly wanted to help? What if they were risking everything to stop the collective? The journey to Everon 4 would test their resolve, their trust, and their will to survive. The stakes had never been higher, and the darkness ahead had never been deeper. But they would fight. Because they had to. Chapter 3: The Awakening of Omega. The journey to Everon 4 was long and perilous, marked by constant evasion of Zenith patrols and dangerous, uncharted hyperspace jumps. The Resistance's small fleet, led by Captain Alec Renshaw aboard the Shadow's Edge, moved with the desperation of those who knew every moment could be their last. The stakes had never been higher. The activation of the Omega Protocol would mean annihilation not just for the Resistance, but for every human world. In the dim glow of the bridge, Alec stood with arms crossed, his gaze fixed on the swirling expanse of hyperspace. Beside him, Lieutenant Tara Voss monitored their trajectory, her fingers dancing over the controls. The tension between them was palpable. Almost there, Tara said, breaking the silence. Her voice was calm, but Alec could sense the fear beneath it. Everon IV's gravity well will pull us out in 3 minutes. Alec nodded. Prep the strike team. I want everyone ready. Behind them, Sci-Fi, the Zenith defector who had offered to guide them, remained motionless, their shifting mask hiding whatever expression lay beneath. Alec still didn't trust them completely, but he had no choice. You know this is a trap, right? Tara murmured, her voice low enough that only Alec could hear. Even if Sci-Fi's telling the truth, the Zenith won't let us get close to that nexus without a fight. I know, Alec replied, his jaw tightening. But we don't have a choice. Your fear is justified, Sci-Fi interjected, their voice modulated and emotionless. But fear will not stop what is coming. Action will. The descent to Everon 4. As the fleet exited hyperspace, Everon 4 loomed before them, a desolate, storm-racked planet scarred by centuries of conflict. Lightning danced across its surface, and towering metal spires jutted from the ground like skeletal remains. It was here that the Omega Protocol's central AI nexus lay dormant, waiting to be reawakened. The Resistance ships descended cautiously, weaving through the planet's turbulent atmosphere. Alec's heart pounded as they broke through the clouds, revealing a vast expanse of metallic ruins. The ground was a graveyard of ancient Zenith war machines, their rusted forms half buried in the earth. This place is a tomb, Tara muttered, her eyes scanning the horizon. Why would they hide their greatest weapon here? Because it was never meant to be used, Sci-Fi replied, their tone distant. The Omega fleet was a last resort, a weapon of annihilation. But now, desperation has changed their calculations. The Shadow's Edge touched down near the entrance to the Nexus, a massive, circular gateway carved into the earth. Alec and his team disembarked quickly, weapons at the ready. The air was thick with ozone, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. Keep moving, Alec ordered, his voice steady. We're not alone here. The heart of the Nexus. The path to the Nexus core was a maze of tunnels and chambers, each one more foreboding than the last. As they moved deeper, automated defenses activated, turrets emerged from the walls, and drones descended from hidden alcoves. The Resistance fought with everything they had, their weapons lighting up the darkness. Stay close. Alec shouted, firing at a swarm of drones that descended on their flank. Sparks flew as the machines fell, but more took their place. Tara moved beside him, her movements precise and deadly.
Together, they pushed forward, step by step. Ahead of them, Sci-Fi moved with an otherworldly grace, their knowledge of Zenith technology allowing them to disable traps and bypass security systems.
But even their expertise had limits.
At the entrance to the core chamber, they paused, their mask flickering with shifting patterns.
What is it?
Alec demanded, his breath ragged. The AI Nexus is aware of our presence, Sci-Fi said. It will not allow us to proceed. As if in response, the ground shook violently. The walls of the chamber came alive with blinding light, and a deep, resonant voice filled the air.
You dare awaken me? Alec's blood ran cold.
The AI's presence was overwhelming, a mind vast and ancient, filled with cold calculation and malice. We have to move, Tara said, urgency in her voice.
Now. With a nod, Alec led the charge into the core chamber.
The core's awakening. The chamber was massive, its walls lined with pulsating conduits that fed into a central structure, a towering obelisk of shimmering metal and light.
This was the Nexus core, the heart of the Omega Protocol.
Energy crackled around it, and the air was thick with the weight of its presence.
We destroy that, Alec said, his voice grim, or we die here.
Easier said than done, Tara replied, her eyes scanning the room. The Nexus was defended by towering sentinels, massive war machines that bristled with weapons.
As the resistance moved into position, the sentinels activated, their eyes blazing with blue fire. Hold the line.
Alec shouted, his voice echoing through the chamber. The resistance fighters spread out, engaging the sentinels with everything they had. Blades clashed, energy blasts seared the air, and the ground shook with every impact. Sci-Fi moved with precision, their hands manipulating holographic interfaces that appeared in midair. I can destabilize the core's energy flow, they said.
But you must buy me time.
Do it, Alec replied, his eyes never leaving the battle. He lunged at one of the sentinels, his blade striking sparks as it clashed against metal.
The machine retaliated, its massive arms swinging with deadly force.
Alec ducked, the wind from the blow whipping past his face. He struck again, finding a gap in its armor.
Focus fire on their joints.
Tara shouted, her rifle blazing.
It's their weakest point.
The battle raged on, every second stretching into eternity.
The resistance fought with desperation, their numbers dwindling.
Alec felt exhaustion creeping in, but he refused to yield.
This was their last stand. Core destabilization at 40%, Sci-Fi announced, their voice strained. Hold on. The betrayal.
Just as victory seemed within reach, Sci-Fi's movements faltered. Their mask flickered, and their hands stopped. The energy around the Nexus surged dangerously, and the sentinels paused, their eyes flickering.
What's happening? Alec demanded, his chest heaving.
Sci-Fi turned slowly, their mask shifting to reveal a glimpse of alien features beneath.
The AI has countermeasures. I cannot proceed. Can't or won't?
Tara asked, her voice laced with suspicion. Before Sci-Fi could respond, the Nexus pulsed with energy, and the chamber trembled. A holographic projection of the AI appeared, a towering figure of light and shadow. You have failed, defector.
The realization hit Alec like a punch to the gut. It was a trap. No.
Sci-Fi said, their voice frantic.
I tried. The sentinels reactivated, their movements faster, more coordinated. The AI was using Sci-Fi's knowledge against them, adapting to every tactic. We need to retreat.
Tara shouted, firing at an advancing sentinel.
Alec's mind raced. Retreat meant certain death. But staying meant fighting an unwinnable battle. Unless.
We take it down now, he said, his voice cold.
No more waiting. He charged toward the Nexus core, his blade glowing with energy. Tara and the remaining fighters followed, their weapons blazing.
The sentinels converged, but they fought with everything they had. Every strike, every breath was a defiance of the AI's cold inevitability. Alec reached the core, his body battered and broken. He raised his blade high, channeling all his strength. For humanity, he roared, plunging it into the core. The energy surge was blinding. The nexus shattered, and the chamber erupted in light.
The cost of victory.
When the light faded, Alec lay on the ground, his body weak. Around him, the chamber was in ruins, the sentinels inert. The AI's presence was gone, a whisper of what it had been. Tara knelt beside him, bloodied but alive. "We did it," she said, her voice trembling. Alec nodded, pain racking his body.
"But at what cost?"
Ciphers stood apart, their mask shattered.
"I tried to stop it. I failed." Alec met their gaze, his eyes hard. "We're not done. This war isn't over."
"No," Cipher agreed, their voice hollow.
"But you have delayed the end." The resistance had won a victory. But it was only the beginning of a long, brutal fight for survival.
As they emerged from the ruins, Alec looked to the stars. The darkness ahead was vast, but they would keep fighting.
Together.